My son Michael married Bethany 6 years ago, when he was 32 and she was 28. I liked her immediately. She was warm, funny, constantly taking photos of everything. "I just love capturing memories," she'd say, and I thought it was sweet. She'd grown up without much family, she told me, and she wanted to build something beautiful with Michael. She wanted our family traditions, our recipes, our stories. I gave her everything. My mother's silver, my grandmother's engagement ring to have the stones reset, every family recipe, handwritten on index cards. I taught her how to make Michael's favorite pot roast, how to get the gravy just right. When they bought their house, a fixer-upper in an expensive neighborhood, I helped with the down payment, $20,000, which was a significant chunk of my retirement savings. But Michael was my only child, and I wanted them to have a good start. "You're not just gaining a daughter-in-law," Bethany had said at the wedding, hugging me tight. "You're gaining a best friend." And for a while, it felt true. Then came the grandchildren. Olivia first, then, 2 years later, Jackson. I was besotted. I'd never been particularly maternal. I'd been a decent mother to Michael, I thought, but somewhat reserved, focused on my career as a hospital administrator. But grandchildren were different. With Olivia and Jackson, I could finally just love, without all the anxiety and responsibility I'd felt raising Michael alone after my husband died when Michael was 3. I retired early, at 62, specifically to be available for them. Bethany worked from home doing social media consulting, which I understood as vaguely as any woman my age understands such things, and she needed help. So I helped. 2, 3, sometimes 4 days a week, I'd drive the 30 minutes to their house. I'd watch the kids while she worked. I'd fold their laundry. I'd meal prep. I'd coordinate the cleaning service and meet the repair people and organize their family calendar. "You're a lifesaver, Margaret," Bethany would say, usually while photographing something. The kids playing, the food I'd made, the organized pantry I'd spent hours arranging. "I literally couldn't do this without you." It felt good to be needed, but there were odd moments, small things that didn't quite make sense. Like the time Olivia, then 4, threw an epic tantrum over a pink cup. She wanted the blue cup. She screamed for 20 minutes. It was bizarre. Olivia was generally an easy child, but Bethany just filmed it. The whole thing. "For the pediatrician," she said when she saw my expression. "They asked me to document the behavioral stuff." Or the time Bethany asked me to make my mother's famous apple pie, then had me make it again because the lighting wasn't quite right, and I want to get good photos of the process. I thought it was wasteful, but she was so enthusiastic about preserving family traditions that I made it 3 times. Or the strange question she'd ask, "Margaret, when Michael's father died, how did you tell Michael? What exact words did you use?" And later, "What was your biggest regret as a mother? Be really honest." She said she was working on personal development and wanted to learn from my experiences. I found it a bit intrusive, but she made it sound like intimacy, like the deep sharing you do with family. The Christmas before last, almost 2 years ago now, I got the flu. A bad one. I was in bed for a week, which meant I couldn't watch the kids. Bethany seemed irritated. Not worried, irritated. "I have a huge deadline," she said. "Is there any way you could push through?" I was 66 years old with a 102-degree fever. I could not push through. That was when things started to shift. Suddenly, I was invited to family dinners less frequently. When I did come, Bethany would make odd comments. "Margaret, I know you grew up in a different time, but we don't use that kind of language around the children." I hadn't used any language. I'd simply mentioned that Jackson might need warmer pajamas for winter. Or, "I think it's so interesting how your generation just expected to be involved in every aspect of your children's lives. Michael and I are really trying to establish our own family identity." I'd been helping her establish her family identity for 5 years. The kids started saying strange things too. "Mommy says you don't understand boundaries, Grandma." This from 6-year-old Olivia, in that parroting voice children use when repeating adult phrases they don't understand. I tried talking to Michael. "Is everything okay?" I feel like Bethany's been distant. He'd sigh. "Mom, you have to understand, Bethany's under a lot of pressure with work. And, honestly, maybe you could give us a little more space? Bethany feels like you're always here. Always here." Where I'd been specifically invited. Where I'd been told I was essential. I pulled back. I didn't want to be the overbearing mother-in-law. I'd seen enough of those in my career, the women who couldn't let go, who created tension in young marriages. So I went from 3 days a week to one, then to every other week, then to only when specifically invited, which became less and less frequent. Last Christmas, I wasn't invited to Christmas morning. Just immediate family, Bethany explained. The kids are at such a magical age, we want to keep it intimate. I came for dinner at 4 p.m., brought gifts that seemed to disappoint everyone, and left at 7 p.m. feeling like an intruder in my son's life. In February, I had a health scare. A suspicious mammogram, followed by a biopsy, followed by 2 weeks of waiting for results. I told Michael. I thought he'd tell Bethany, thought maybe she'd call or text, the way family does when someone's frightened. She sent a text. Thinking of you. That was it. The biopsy came back benign, thank God. But I'd spent 2 weeks terrified I might have cancer, and my daughter-in-law had sent me an emoji. I started to feel crazy, like I'd imagined the closeness we'd had. Maybe I had been overbearing. Maybe my help hadn't been help at all, but interference. Maybe this was normal adult children creating distance, grandparents being gently managed out of the center of family life. I joined a book club. I started taking watercolor classes. I tried to build a life that didn't revolve around Olivia and Jackson, even though I missed them with a physical ache. I'd see Bethany's posts on Facebook, beautifully styled photos of the kids, of family dinners, of seasonal activities, and feel this hollow sadness. I was being edited out of my own family. Then came the bake sale request. Bethany called on a Tuesday. Margaret, listen, I know we haven't connected much lately, but I'm chairing the school bake sale, and I remembered your lemon bars are always such a hit. Any chance you could make a few dozen? I was so pathetically grateful to be needed that I said yes immediately. Which brings us back to my kitchen, 3 days later, holding a warm plate of lemon bars while being uninvited from Christmas. I don't understand, I said. I actually felt dizzy. What do you mean I make everything difficult? Bethany's expression was patient. Practiced. Margaret, I think you've been struggling with boundaries for a while now. The constant calls. I call once a week. The showing up unannounced. I brought birthday presents for Jackson. On his birthday. Which you told me to drop off because you'd be home. The criticism of my parenting. I have never criticized your parenting. See, this is what I mean. This defensiveness. This inability to take accountability. She sighed. I've been working really hard on healthy family systems, and I think the most loving thing I can do for everyone, including you, is to create some space. I set the lemon bars down carefully on the counter. You asked me to make these 3 days ago. You specifically requested them. For the bake sale, yes. Which I appreciate. But that doesn't mean, get out of my house. Her eyes widened. In 6 years, I'd never used that tone with her. I'd never used that tone with anyone. Margaret, get out. Take your lemon bars. And we can discuss Christmas when you're ready to have an honest conversation about what's actually happening here. She left. Without the lemon bars, interestingly. I sat in my kitchen for an hour, staring at nothing. Then, I did what any woman my age does when she needs to make sense of something. I called my friend Linda. Linda, bless her, came over immediately. I explained the whole bizarre interaction, the uninviting, the accusations, the feeling that I was losing my mind. Has she said anything specific about what you supposedly did? Linda asked. No. Just vague things about boundaries and my generation and being difficult. Linda pulled out her phone. What's Bethany's last name again? Morrison. Why? Linda was typing. Does she have social media? Just Facebook, I think. She posts pictures of the kids sometime. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter? Linda was scrolling. How do you spell Bethany? Bethany. What are you looking for? Linda went very still. Margaret, does Bethany have a blog? A blog? I don't. She does. Social media consulting. Maybe? Why? Linda turned her phone around. Is this her? The website was called Grace and Grit, One Mom's Journey to Authentic Living. The header photo was Bethany, looking serene and beautiful, holding a cup of tea in her pristine kitchen. The tagline read, Motherhood, Boundaries, and Breaking Free from Toxic Family Patterns. That's her kitchen, I said stupidly. I organized that pantry. Linda clicked on the About page. I watched Bethany's face fill the screen, the same warm smile I'd thought meant we were family. Hi, I'm Bethany. I'm a mom of 2 amazing humans, a wife to my patient saint of a husband, and a survivor of toxic family dynamics. I started this blog 6 years ago when I realized I was drowning in expectations, in outdated rules, in the crushing weight of trying to please people who would never be pleased. This is my space to share the messy, beautiful truth of building the family I never had. Welcome to our journey. 6 years ago, when they got married. Keep scrolling, Linda said quietly. I scrolled, post after post. Hundreds of them. There was Olivia as a newborn, Jackson's first birthday. The kitchen, I'd helped them paint. The garden, I'd helped plant. My mother's silver on their Thanksgiving table. And the titles. Oh God, the titles. When your mother-in-law makes your birth about her. Protecting your kids from grandparents who won't respect boundaries. The Guilt Trip, a user's manual, featuring My Mill. How to handle family members who think your house is their second home. I clicked on that last one. My hands were shaking. She let herself in yesterday using the emergency key we'd given her. Note to self, get that key back. I came downstairs to find her reorganizing my pantry again, because apparently the way I arrange my own food in my own kitchen is somehow wrong. When I gently suggested that maybe she could ask first, she got defensive and said she was just trying to help. This is the thing about toxic helpers. They create problems so they can swoop in and fix them, then get upset when you don't fall over yourself with gratitude. I'd organized that pantry because Bethany had called me, nearly in tears, saying she couldn't find anything and the chaos was making her anxious. I'd spent 6 hours making everything beautiful for her. Margaret, Linda said, maybe you shouldn't read more right now. But I couldn't stop. It was like watching footage of your own life from an alternate dimension. Every moment I remembered as connection, as family, reframed as pathology. The time I'd suggested Olivia might be cold at the park twisted into me undermining Bethany's parenting. The recipe cards I'd lovingly written out described as a passive-aggressive suggestion that my cooking isn't good enough. The $20,000 for their house never mentioned at all. And the comments. Thousands of comments. Stay strong, Bethany. You're doing amazing. My MIL is exactly like this. Why do they think they own our children? Have you considered going no contact? You don't owe her a relationship just because she's family. There were posts about my health scare. MIL is having tests, and of course expects the world to stop. I'm trying to hold space for my husband's worry while also maintaining boundaries around my own energy. Posts about my pulling back. Victory. I think she finally got the message. We've had 3 weeks of peace. Posts about the lemon bars. This one was from yesterday. Mill just left. She's really ramping up the guilt. As we get closer to the holidays, I asked for one thing bake sale donation, and she turned it into this whole performance about how much she does for us and how unappreciated she is. I finally had to be direct. We're doing Christmas as our nuclear family this year. The kids deserve a holiday that's about joy, not managing difficult personalities. She did not take it well. But this is what growth looks like, friends. Uncomfortable conversations, clear boundaries, choosing peace over people-pleasing. Who else is dreading the guilt trips this holiday season? Drop your stories below. I need to know I'm not alone. The comments were already rolling in. Hundreds of people, strangers, weighing in on my life, my character, my relationship with my grandchildren. All of them certain I was the villain in this story. Because that's the story Bethany had sold them. I scrolled back. Further. 6 years of posts. Some were benign recipes, parenting tips, seasonal crafts. But woven throughout, like poison thread, were posts about me. About the overbearing mother-in-law, the boundary stomper, the guilt tripper, the toxic presence they were bravely, authentically, setting limits with. There were posts from when I was sick with the flu, reframed as me being dramatic for attention. Posts about the Christmas I came for dinner, describing how I'd monopolized the conversation and made everything about her era. Posts about regular phone calls between grandmother and grandchildren, described as love bombing and triangulation. I found a post from Olivia's 4th birthday. The photo showed her in tears, the tantrum over the cup colors. But the caption read, Olivia's having a hard day. We think she's absorbing some of the tension with MIL, who's been extra clingy lately. Kids are like sponges for family dysfunction, working on giving her tools to express her feelings in healthy ways. That tantrum had been staged, or at least prolonged. I'd watched Bethany film it for 20 minutes. For this, for content, for a narrative about how my presence damaged my own granddaughter. I found a video. It had 47,000 views. It was Jackson, maybe 3 years old, building blocks. Off camera, Bethany's voice. Who's your favorite person, buddy? Grandma. Really? Even when Grandma says you're being too loud? Grandma doesn't say that. She doesn't? What about at dinner last week? I don't remember. She told you to use your inside voice. Remember? That made you feel bad, didn't it? A pause. Then, uncertainly, yeah. It's okay to feel sad when grown-ups aren't nice. Can you tell Mommy how it made you feel? I watched my grandson being coached into a narrative where I was unkind, where asking a 3-year-old to use an inside voice at dinner was emotional abuse. The video's caption: sometimes they just need permission to be honest about difficult relationships. I found posts about my mother's silver, about the engagement ring, about family recipes, all of it described as gifts that came with strings attached and expectations of control. The $20,000 wasn't mentioned anywhere. I found a post from 2 months ago when I'd tried to drop off birthday presents for Jackson. She showed up unannounced again. I'm at my wit's end. We've had the conversation about calling first 100 times. It's like she genuinely cannot conceive of our family existing without her at the center. My therapist suggested this might be narcissistic behavior, the inability to respect other people's autonomy. Narcissistic behavior. My therapist suggested professional language weaponized to make me the pathology. And then I found the numbers. The blog had 340,000 followers. 340,000 people consuming this version of my life. This story where I was the antagonist. There were affiliate links, sponsored posts, a Shop My Favorites section, featuring kitchen tools and organizational systems, the ones I'd bought for their house with my own money, repackaged as Bethany's aesthetic choices. There was a course, Boundaries Bootcamp, 6 weeks to family freedom, $297. There was a Patreon. Join the Inner Circle for exclusive content, early access, and deeper dives into the journey. 847 patrons, at tiers ranging from $5 to $50 per month. I did the math. Even conservative estimates, this blog was generating $15,000, $20,000 per month, maybe more. My daughter-in-law had built a 6-figure business monetizing her conflict with me. A conflict she'd systematically created, documented, and sold to hundreds of thousands of strangers as authentic living. I was sitting in my kitchen holding my phone, shaking so hard I thought I might break something. Linda took the phone gently from my hands. We should call Michael. Michael knows, I heard myself say. He has to know. He's in some of the posts. I grabbed the phone back, searched for posts mentioning my son. There he was, Michael, described as caught between loyalty to his mother and his wife's well-being. Posts about their arguments over me. Posts where Bethany positioned herself as the reasonable one, trying to help Michael see the patterns and break the cycle. He's getting better at holding his boundaries with her. It's hard, she raised him to center her needs, so of course he feels guilty when he chooses our family's peace. But he's doing the work. I'm so proud of him. She'd isolated him, reframed his love for his mother as dysfunction, made choosing me synonymous with choosing toxicity. What are you going to do? Linda asked. I didn't answer, because I was reading the comments section of the most recent post, the one about the lemon bars and Christmas. And buried in 200+ supportive comments, there was one that stood out. Bethany, I love your blog, but I have to say this. I've been following you for 3 years. Your mill sounds difficult, sure, but I've noticed you never mention that she helped with your down payment, or that she watches your kids for free, or that time you posted about being sick and she brought you homemade soup. These posts just show up and then disappear. Are you deleting content that doesn't fit the narrative? Below it, Bethany's response. Hi, thanks for following along. I try to keep the focus on boundary work and healing, not on defending myself against people who don't understand the full context. If the content doesn't resonate with you, there's lots of other blogs out there. Condescending, dismissive. The comment was gone within an hour, I'd bet. I went to Google. I searched Bethany Morrison blog criticism. And there it was, a small thread on a forum I'd never heard of. People discussing grace, grit. Most of it was praise, but there were a few skeptical voices. Anyone else notice she's built her entire brand on hating her MIL but won't share concrete examples? It's always vague boundary violations and emotional manipulation without specifics. The kids make me uncomfortable. She films them constantly. That crying video felt exploitative. I followed her for a year before I realized She creates drama with her MIL so she has content. Then she monetizes the resolution. It's a business model. A business model. 6 years of my life, my love, my retirement savings, my relationship with my grandchildren reduced to a business model. I looked at Linda. I need to think. She nodded. Do you want me to stay? No. I need to process this alone. After she left, I sat in my quiet house and I let myself feel it. All of it. The betrayal, the rage, the humiliation, the grief. Because that's what this was. Grief. The family I thought I had never existed. Or it had existed only in my mind, while Bethany was performing a different story entirely, one where I was the villain she needed me to be so that her triumph over me would sell. Every holiday, every recipe shared, every hour with my grandchildren, all of it data, content, raw material for the narrative. I thought about Olivia and Jackson. Growing up in a house where grandma was simultaneously loved and vilified, where their mother filmed their pain and packaged it as authenticity, where family moments were orchestrated for engagement metrics. I thought about Michael, trapped between loyalty to his wife and loyalty to his mother, being told that choosing his mother was choosing toxicity. I thought about myself at 68 years old, my retirement savings dented, my relationship with my only child damaged, my grandchildren being taught that I was dangerous. And I thought, no, not like this. This doesn't end like this. I spent 3 days reading every single post, all 6 years. I took screenshots. I documented. I made spreadsheets. I found the posts Bethany had deleted, the ones Linda's tech-savvy nephew helped me pull from internet archives, the ones where she'd mentioned the down payment, my help with the kids, the recipes, the silver, the posts that contradicted her narrative. She'd systematically erased them as the blog grew, refining the story into a cleaner victim versus villain arc. I found the private Patreon content Linda's nephew again, bless him, where Bethany was even more explicit. Posts about managing Michael's guilt and creating natural consequences for boundary violations and training the kids to be neutral about MIL without making them feel bad. Training the kids. I found sponsored posts where Bethany sold organizational products using my systems, kitchen tools I'd bought, labels I'd created, my work, my aesthetic, my time monetized without acknowledgement. I found the exact numbers. Between the blog ads, the Patreon, the sponsored content, the course, and the affiliate links, Bethany was making approximately $18,000 per month, over $200,000 per year, built on a foundation of making me the antagonist in her story. And then I made a plan, not revenge. I'm 68 years old. I don't have time for revenge. I wanted truth. And I wanted my grandchildren protected from being turned into content. First, I called my attorney. Not to sue, I had no interest in courts and depositions and drawn-out legal warfare. But I needed to understand my options. He was fascinated and appalled in equal measure. She's used your likeness, your home, your property, your money, all without permission, he said. This is legally murky territory. You could probably pursue something, but it would be expensive and lengthy, and I don't want to sue her, I said. I want to know, if I were to publicly respond to her claims, could she sue me for defamation? Not if you're telling the truth. Truth is an absolute defense. Even if it damages her business? Even then. Though she could make your life difficult trying. She's already made my life difficult. Second, I did something I'd never done before. I created social media accounts. TikTok, Instagram, all the platforms where Bethany's audience lived. I used my actual name, Margaret Chen. Third, I bought a ring light and a decent microphone. Linda's nephew gave me a tutorial. You're really doing this? He asked. I'm really doing this. Fourth, I practiced. I'm a decent public speaker. Decades of hospital administration taught me how to present information clearly. But this was different. This needed to be calm, factual, impossible to dismiss as emotional or bitter. I made my first video sitting at my kitchen table. Natural light, no filter. Just me, gray hair and reading glasses and all, looking directly at the camera. Hello, my name is Margaret Chen. Some of you may know me as the mother-in-law from the blog Grace and Grit, One Mom's Journey to Authentic Living. I'm the toxic family member, the boundary violator, the narcissist. I'm here to tell my side of the story, not because I need to defend myself to strangers, but because my grandchildren deserve to grow up knowing the truth. I posted it at 11 p.m. on a Thursday. I didn't tell anyone. I just hit share and went to bed. By morning, it had 2.3 million views. The comments were overwhelming. Supportive, curious, skeptical, angry, all of it. But the message was spreading. There's another side to this story. I made a second video. This one, I showed the bank transfer for the down payment. $20,000, clearly visible. Then I showed Bethany's blog, every single post from that year. Not one mention of it. I'm not sharing this to shame anyone, I said to the camera. I'm sharing this because truth matters. And because I'm asking everyone who follows Bethany to consider, what else might she have left out? 3 million views. The third video, I showed the screenshots of deleted posts. The ones where Bethany had mentioned my help, my contributions, my gifts, all systematically erased as her narrative evolved. This is what revision looks like, I said. This is how you turn a person into a villain. You delete the context. You keep the conflict. 4 million views. By the fourth video, Bethany's comment sections were flooded with questions. Her carefully curated audience was fracturing. People were asking for receipts. For her side. For acknowledgement. She tried to get ahead of it. She made a post. I'm aware that someone claiming to be my MIL is posting videos. I won't be addressing this publicly because engaging with toxic people only feeds the dysfunction. My focus is on my family's well-being and this community of healing. But it was too late. Her own followers were turning because I wasn't being toxic. I wasn't even being angry. I was just being factual and calm and really, really thorough. I showed the video of Jackson being coached into saying I made him feel bad. I didn't editorialize. I just showed it and said, "This is my grandson at 3 years old. Watch what happens." The response was seismic. Parenting communities across platforms started discussing it. Was this manipulation? Was this coaching children to reject family? Were influencer parents exploiting their kids? Bethany lost 40,000 followers in a week. Sponsors started pulling out. The Patreon numbers dropped. And then Michael called. "Mom, we need to talk." We met at a coffee shop. Neutral ground. He looked terrible, exhausted, confused, defensive. "Is it true?" he asked. "The down payment. Did Bethany really delete all those posts?" "Yes. She said you're taking things out of context, that you don't understand social media and..." "Michael." I pushed my phone across the table. "Just read." I'd prepared a document, timeline, screenshots, bank records, every claim I'd made backed up with evidence. I'd learned that, from hospital administration too, documentation beats emotion every time. He read for 20 minutes. I watched his face change. Disbelief, confusion, dawning horror. This whole time she's been. He looked up at me. "Why didn't you say something? Would you have believed me? 6 months ago, if I'd told you Bethany was running a blog where she made me the villain, would you have believed me?" He was quiet. "She isolated you carefully," I said. "She made questioning her the same as choosing dysfunction. She's very, very good at what she does." "The kids," he said suddenly. "Oh God, the kids. That video of Jackson. I know. She coaches them. For content. She uses them. I know." He put his head in his hands. "What do I do?" "That's not for me to say, honey. That's your marriage. Your family. But those are also my grandchildren, and I need to know they're not being turned into props for someone's business model." He was crying. My 40-year-old son, sitting in a coffee shop, crying over the wreckage of his understanding of his marriage. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry I didn't see it. I'm so sorry I let her. You were manipulated. By someone who's very good at manipulation. This isn't your fault. But it was a little bit his fault, and we both knew it." He'd chosen to believe the narrative that questioning his wife made him disloyal. He'd chosen to believe that his mother was the problem. Still, he was my son. And he was here, now, willing to see the truth. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now you decide what kind of father you want to be. And what kind of man." What happened next happened fast. Michael confronted Bethany. She denied everything, then minimized, then attacked. "You're choosing your toxic mother over your wife? This is exactly what she wants." He moved into my guest room that night with Olivia and Jackson. Bethany's response was predictable. She made a tearful video about family crisis and protecting her children, and abusive patterns coming to light. She positioned herself as the victim of a coordinated attack by her husband, mother-in-law. It might have worked, except by then, my videos had reached critical mass. News outlets were picking up the story. Influencer under fire for allegedly exploiting family conflict. Grandmother goes viral, exposing DIL's boundary blog. Bethany's brand was built on authenticity, on truth-telling, on being the brave one, calling out toxic family pattern. When the truth turned out to be more complicated, when she was revealed as the one exploiting, manipulating, monetizing, the collapse was spectacular. She lost her sponsorships. Her Patreon dropped to double digits. The blog that had been generating $200,000 a year evaporated in less than a month. But here's the thing I didn't expect. I didn't feel triumphant. Ifat shod. Because Bethany wasn't evil. She was damaged, and desperate, and talented, and she'd found a way to turn her damage into profit. She'd convinced herself that her version of events was true, that she was the victim, that everything she did was justified because she was breaking cycles and choosing healing. She'd turned me into a villain because she needed a villain for her story to work. And once you build a business on a narrative, you can't afford to let facts get in the way. Michael and Bethany are divorced now. It's amicable. Mostly they share custody of Olivia and Jackson. Bethany's in therapy, actually working on herself this time, not performing therapy for content. She got a real job, something in marketing. She deleted the blog. The kids are doing okay. Better, actually. Olivia told me last week, "Mommy doesn't make us do videos anymore." The relief in her voice broke my heart. I see them 3 times a week now. Real visits, not content opportunities. We bake cookies messy, imperfect cookies that no one photographs. We read books. We build Legos. We just exist together without documentation. Michael is still processing everything. Some days he's angry at Bethany. Some days he's angry at himself. Most days he's just trying to be a good father and figure out who he is outside of someone else's narrative. And me? I'm okay. Better than okay, actually. I learned something through all this. I spent 6 years wondering if I was crazy, if my perceptions were wrong, if I really was difficult, toxic, narcissistic, all the labels Bethany gave me. Turns out, I wasn't crazy. My instincts were right. The relationship did feel wrong because it was wrong. I was being used. That validation, that knowing I wasn't imagining it, that's worth more than any revenge could ever be. Looking back, I think the best thing Bethany ever did was show me exactly who she was. It just took me a while, and a few million strangers, to believe it. These days, I'm back to my watercolor classes, my book club, my quiet life that doesn't generate content or engagement metrics. Linda and I have lunch every Tuesday. I volunteer at the hospital again, the real kind of helping, not the performative kind. And on Wednesdays and Saturdays and Sunday afternoons, I have my grandchildren. No cameras, no narratives, no audience, just us, just real, just family. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. I know this was a lot, maybe more than you bargained for when you clicked on whatever brought you here. But I learned something else through this whole mess. Stories matter. Whose story gets told matters. And sometimes, the people who look like villains in someone else's story are just people trying to love their families without being turned into content. Maybe you've got someone in your life who makes you feel crazy, who rewrites history to suit their narrative, who turns your love into evidence of your toxicity. Trust yourself. You're probably not imagining it. And if you are a grandmother somewhere, missing grandchildren, wondering if you're the problem, you might not be. You might just be standing in the way of someone else's storyline. Either way, you're not alone. None of us are, really. We're just trying to love people in a world that's figured out how to monetize everything, even family. Thanks for being here. I hope you find your truth, whatever it is.